Hi, everybody. This is very strange. I'm sitting here in Jerusalem and I'm speaking to you the other side of the Mediterranean in Florence, and hoping that you will enjoy my presentation about the Mirrorworld. Through the Looking Glass, Cultural Heritage Custodians to Populate the Mirrorworld. This is something I've been thinking about a while, the idea of a mirror world. The mirror world as such doesn't fully exist, not yet anyway, but it is coming sometime soon. And this is a quote by Kevin Cayley from Wired, which inspired me to write this paper on the mirror world. The mirror world doesn't yet fully exist, but it's coming someday, sometime soon. Every place and everything in the real world, every street, lamppost, building and room will have its full-size digital twin in the mirror world. For now, only tiny patches of the mirror world are visible through AR headsets, but piece by piece, these virtual fragments are being stitched together to form a shared, persistent place that will parallel the real world. So come and join me on my journey to the mirror world. First, we'll discuss what is the mirror world, what it means to take the 3D leap of faith, and what it means to be a persistent place, and where the museums and cultural institutions, the custodians of cultural heritage come in and to bring their knowledge of informing 4D literacy into the mirror world. The last thing is, where does the mirror world take us? So this is a journey I'd like to take you on. So you're welcome to join me. But just as a word of caution before I start, I want to quote here Shoshana Zuboff. And she says some very interesting things, and I'll refer to her from time to time. But here I'm quoting her. Amongst high-tech leaders within the specialist literature and amongst expert professionals, there appears to be a universal agreement on the idea that everything will be connected, knowable, and actionable in the near future. Ubiquity and its consequences in total information are an article of faith. So that's my starting point. And this is what I believe is already happening. We walk around with our smartphones and we snap all sorts of things. You can find a flower, identify it, and have its digital twin sitting in the palm of your hand. Plants and butterflies and fishes. You create the fragments yourself as you walk around with your own smartphone. And anything you want, you can instantly digitize and instantly store and use and reuse anytime you wish. You can also create objects from the figment of your imagination. And these are two objects that appeared in my living room. I think you can see here the tiger and her lion. And this is me writing this paper a few months ago. But also that's my dog, and she's very real. So we are creating this alternate reality anyway as we go. And sometimes it's difficult to tell the difference between the real dog and the real tiger, and there's a logic behind it. But in terms of our world and our digital world, these are the crossovers that we're going to be seeing more and more. You can bring art through the Google Arts projects into your life, into your living room, at least in the digital. Thousands, tens of thousands of objects have been digitized in the Google Arts and Culture project. And you can just call them up and place them in your own living room. But there's something about this process that we need to know that it's being automated. And this automated is also very much part of our computers and our smartphones, and it's already at your fingertips. When I was writing this paper, putting these images in, and this is an image that I'll refer to later on, but I just wanted to bring it here into the conversation to show you that as I was placing this into my Word document, I was being prompted by Word to give it a title, and whoever it was, the little midget that sits inside my Word document told me maybe it's a person wearing glasses and smiling at the camera. Well, that's a lot of information that's automated and being pulled up. And it actually made a lot of sense. I thought to myself, my goodness, if Word can have this capacity to read my images and to give me an alternate text for my title, my caption, this is getting a bit scary. But yes, it's scary, and yes, it's fascinating. But what is the role of culture? This is what interests me. Where were the thousands of institutions, the cultural institutions that are scattered around the globe, who together hold the disconnected slivers of our shared history and all our common artistic endeavors? Are they going to become active players? And how will these fragments come together? And how will they become available to everybody through the looking glass? So I'm actually very concerned what it means for the virtual global patchwork of human creativity, and especially for custodians of cultural heritage. And of course, I'm talking about museums, libraries, and archives, GLAMs here, who are ideally placed to seed the spatial communications network that will drive the new platform. But it's up to the custodians of cultural heritage to become proactive in building the mirror world, rather than to wait for third-party actors to advance commercial interests, imitation culture, simulated histories, or made-up stories. So I would argue here, and this is why I'm bringing this to the table here in Florence, as gatekeepers of cultural artifacts, GLAMs have the capability, the experience, and even the responsibility to tell their stories forcefully, accurately, and fully functioning 4D. I want to take you back to Shoshana Zuboff, and she now talks about surveillance capitalism in her amazing book, actually, that I recommend everyone to read. And this is actually about the virtual, I'm quoting here, the virtual global patchwork of human creativity that she has identified behind us, the driving force of a lot of the digitalized data that's out there, has an unprecedented form of power that's driving it. And she calls this surveillance capitalism. She says there's a price of free services. In every case, agents and institutions present their novel practices as if they are one thing. I'm just talking about Google and Facebook and Amazon and all our other big friends, when they are in fact altogether something different. And the real politic of commercial surveillance operations is concealed, offstage, while the chorus of actors and singing and dancing under the spotlight holds our attention and sometimes even our enthusiasm. They sweat under the stage lights for the sake of one aim, what we fail to notice, the answer, or better yet, forget to ask the questions. Who knows? Who decides? And who decides? Who decides? Critical questions. So who decides about the management of cultural heritage, especially digital culture, and who gets to make up our stories in this new world with the mirror world? Zuboff's comprehensive and moving analysis lays bare the threats that is the control of the hive of a total connection, and that seduces the promises of a total of certainty for maximum profit at the expense of democracy, freedom, and our human future. And there's right now very little resistance from law or society surveillance, and surveillance capitalism is on the verge of dominating the social order and shaping the digital future if we let it. Another commentary here is from Yuval Noah Harari, and you all know him from his series of books, the first famous one, The Sapiens. And he says, as more and more machines read our potential, and when tech knows you better than you know yourself, we're coming into a scary time, and tech is definitely knowing us better than we know ourselves. So how do I argue about the presence, the provenance of the mirror world? There are several factors that have come together, and we all know and love Google Earth, and now there's a VR functionality to it, so you could actually move anywhere in the world that you wish with a beautiful 3D VR interaction there. So you can all step into Google Earth. And other sense of provenance is the allure of social networks. I think everybody uses some sort of social networks. It's very hard to avoid doing so. And this is another stream of functionality that's building the mirror world. When you are in social networks, when you are online, and how do you spend your time? We see more and more people absolutely fixed on their smartphones as they walk through the streets and wait for a bus and perhaps go shopping, and around the table with the families, and we're busy online shopping. They're reading their news, listening to music, watching movies, education. And now since the recent pandemic, everybody is on Zoom. So we're looking more and more into our screens every day. The trouble is now there is an extreme toxicity level. There's terrorism in these networks, hate crimes, and even a subversion of democracy. So this isn't all a wonderland in the potential mirror world. Another a provenance, another kind of stream of provenance that is building the mirror world is been evolved from the master platform of gaming. And of course, the first one was missed all those years ago. Now what's really taken off is Fortnite. And if you see kids in the street dancing the floss, you'll know that they're completely involved in their Fortnite interaction. And interestingly, since I wrote this paper, Fortnite has been pulled from the App Store and the Google Play Store by the company Epic Games. And there's some very interesting arguments going on and processes that are going on behind the scenes. But we can't deny that the gaming environment is one of the biggest influences on the mirror world that's now evolving. And these are kids dancing the floss. Everywhere you go, you see kids dancing, and all the other dances from Fortnite. Kids play Fortnite because one of the things they are really enjoying in comparison to the previous programs and games they used to play, things like Temple Run and all the kind of all the programs that ran up to this moment of Fortnite. And what they have here at their fingertips is an open-ended, non-linear, persistent world, which means every time they turn on their computer, they can more or less they can build their own world, and they can continue from where they left off. And a lot of kids spend time with their friends, their social time, which is sort of replacing other social networks. To quote Kim Libreri, the founder, one of the founders of Fortnite, he says, to truly see the future of collaborative gameplay and social experiences, you need a large-scale community to help that happen. And this is an idea that a computer program in a basement invents the metaverse is not true. And he argues, what we need is a planet full of people to really help guide things along. And David Gelernter from 1992 expressed the concept of mirror worlds originally. What are they? And he sort of says, well, they're software models as from a chunk of reality. So me piece of the real world going outside your window. In the movie, you kind of get the sense of where we're going to go to in the mirror world. If you think about the movie, The Minority Report from 2002, and the gesture-activated screens. And this is Takehiro Nakawa from Kasuto in Japan. And I met him when we were walking in Kyoto last year with his family. And he was walking with his glasses. And of course, he was completely connected to his smartphone, and he was looking and searching and thinking as he was walking around. This is part of the mirror world. This is what we're moving into. But the true leap of faith will occur when we start moving into a 3D environment. And when Pokemon Go absolutely stormed into our lives in 2011, this was a major shift in the paradigm shift. And the difference here is not sitting by your computer at home. You actually have to go somewhere to play the game. Pokemon came to our museum. Pokemon came to everyone's museum, and in July 2016, we noticed that our physical locations were getting a lot more traffic in unusual places, especially from young people who were strangely engrossed in their smartphones. So we, in the end, invited people to come to the museum with their smartphones and search for Pokemon in our art garden. But not all museums approved of this, and the US Holocaust Museum actively asked its Pokemon players to stop, because this was totally out of context of the Holocaust Museum in Washington. But other versions of AR and VR have been evolving in museums for many years, and one really nice example is the Art Lens, the Gallery One in the Cleveland Museum of Art. This was launched in 2013, and there's so many more that I don't have time to talk about. The Street Museum 2.0 was an AR version that took place across the streets of London. Wonderful project, and many, many more. So this World Wide Web is part of the Mirrorworld. It's basically a text-driven platform, and eventually it was dominated by Google. Social media, the other factor, and provenance, distributed predominantly over mobile phones, dominated by Facebook, Brilliantacat and WeChat, and of course the gaming, which is now dominated by Fortnite. And now we're just arriving at the third platform, just around the corner. And I want to quote John Kelly again, that we're now at the dawn of the third platform, which will digitize the rest of the world. On this platform, all things and places will be machine readable, subject to the power of algorithms. And whoever dominates this grand third platform, the Mirrorworld, will become the wealthiest and most powerful people and companies in history, just as those who dominate the first two platforms. So what is a machine readable world? It's about simultaneous localization and mapping, SLAM, and computational challenge of constructing and constantly updating a map of the potential environment, while simultaneously keeping track of an agent's locality and movement within the potential space. This basically means when you have an autonomous car, it knows the world around it. It can read what's happening and can not only read, but also contribute its own action and positioning in this shared space. So all actors are reading and contributing at the same time. So this potentially will create a radical paradigm shift in the way we experience the world around us. Some are calling it XR, extended reality, a catch-all term that describes a range of visual extensions of reality or cross-reality. So the anywhere, the everywhere, always-on instrumentation, datafication, connection, communication, and computation of all things animate and inanimate, and all processes, natural, human, psychological, chemical, machine, administrative, vehicle, financial, are all coming together to create the shadow of the text, the shadow of our lives. You have been warned. So what is the roles of the custodians of culture? History will be a verb with a swipe of your hand. You will be able to go back in time to any location and see what came before. You'll be able to lay a reconstructed 19th century view right over the present reality, to visit an earlier time at a location you simply revert to at a previous version that's kept in your log, a bit like Photoshop or Word, that you keep up doing and moving forward and back, but this time in time. And this is a crafty world building, and it'll be revolutionary. And the scroll forward scenarios will have the heft of reality because they will be derived from a full-scale present world. So Mirrorworld can best be referred to as a 4D world. And again, this is Kerry speaking. So somebody has to model the world in 3D. And in addition, every object in this world will need a digital twin. So while some consumers will be doing this themselves with tiny head-mounted phone-equipped or street-embedded cameras, or will the data be flooding in from the long-established worldwide commercial pixel pushers, Google, Apple, Microsoft, Ingress, Facebook, and other global giants? At the moment, we see the evolution of the Digital Public Library of America, which is based on Europeana, and Europeana is the European gallery, museum, library, and collection of artifacts, currently with 80 million objects. These are already accumulating our cultural history for us and building originally the first stages of the mirror world. The European Foundation is active in building the proto-mirror world as one of the founding members of the initiative called the Time Machine, which is a consortium of GLAMS and computer science organizations. This is happening now as we speak. The mirror world is evolving. I want to leave you with just one more thought, and this is from Michel Foucault, and he talks about heterochronias and the idea of accumulating everything, the idea of constitution, a sort of general archive, the desire to contain all times, all ages, all forms, all taste in one place, the idea of constitution, a place of all times, but itself is set outside time and protected from erosion. And this is, in fact, the museum and the moment of the heterochronia. So you can learn your museum literally and your 4D literacy when you visit a museum. You have a juxtaposition of archaeological collections and artistic creativity. A museum is a space of 4D literacy, and this is a wonderful place to start growing the mirror world. So the future is not coming soon, it's already here. And this call to action cannot halt the growing progression of the commercial actors, the technical giants, who have already taken over the public space. But the question is, and my question to everybody, can custodians of cultural heritage prevent this relentless progression? And do we sit on the sidelines and watch the digital giants go wild? So I would argue that it's essentially up to custodians of cultural heritage to become proactive in building the mirror world, rather than wait for commercial actors to advance their own fabricated stories. And the GLAM community should be blazing this trail, and these unique, precious stories should be accessed, shared, and augmented in confidence. So thank you very much. There's a version of this paper, obviously from the conference, but also in Italian in Digitalia that came out recently. So you may want to refer, those who prefer Italian may wish to refer to that. So thank you very much, and I hope you'll read my paper.